I'm Matthew Williams, Senior Portfolio Manager and Investment Advisor at Williams & Associates Wealth Stewardship at Richardson Wealth. What I try to do here is simple: cut through the noise and get to what's really going on. Artificial intelligence has been called everything from the greatest breakthrough of our time to a threat to humanity. Most people just want to know what that actually means for their families, their lives, their work, and their investments. To explore that, I'm joined by Auritro Kundu, Portfolio Manager at AGF's Global Select Team, one of the most thoughtful investors I know when it comes to AI and the companies driving it. Together, we'll look at where AI is already making a difference, what's overhyped, and whether this could be the biggest investment landscape of our lifetime. Welcome, everyone. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Auritro Kundu, Vice President and Portfolio Manager at AGF. Since joining AGF in 2015, Auritro has been a key leader across U.S., global, and Canadian growth equity strategies. His investment philosophy, rooted in identifying innovation, earnings growth, cash flow strength, and high return on equity, has earned him recognition across the industry. With an engineering background from the University of Toronto and an MBA from Rotman, his deep analytical rigor serves as the backbone of his thoughtful approach. Auritro, thanks so much for being here to talk about the AI wave, to understand what's happening and what really matters to investors and to all of us. Before we jump in, can you tell the audience a bit more about yourself and your investment team?
Yes. Thanks, Matt, for having me today, and hello, everyone on the line. So a bit about myself. I'm a portfolio manager here at AGF on a growth sleeve of products. I work with a team that runs our American growth strategy, our global select strategy. We have a U.S. small cap strategy as well. So I work closely with fellow portfolio managers, Mike Archibald and Regina Chi, along with a 15-person analyst team, which does a lot of the the grunt work for us, speaking with management team, speaking with sell side, really thinking through our portfolio positions. And then it's a bit of background for myself. I've been here for 10 years. I started off as a technology and consumer discretionary analyst. I've been a portfolio manager on the mandate, for a couple of years now. And before that, I was a sell side technology analyst at National Bank. And as you mentioned, I was an engineer in a past life. So, a interesting path to get here, but I love the experiences I've had along the way.
Oh, that's great. Thanks for that introduction. And I just noticed I was giving away a little bit of a teaser for one of the slides that we'll be pulling up later. So my first question for you is, from your seat as an investor, where are you seeing AI already making real investable impact on people's lives, whether in health, jobs, education, etc.? And which areas look durable enough that in a few years we'll wonder how we ever lived without them?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. Okay, just in general, stepping back, this has been one of the faster adoption curves in history, right? If you see some of the data out there on road to 100 million users, ChatGPT did that in 2 months versus, TikTok in 9 months, YouTube at 1.5 years, Instagram at 2.5 years, Facebook took 4.5 years. So this has been a rapid adoption curve. And, the way we like to look at this is, our analogy is this is very similar to the internet in the mid 90s, right? This was a tool that just, started to gain traction. It slowly gave you productivity gains. And maybe we could debate, the companies that really benefited from it, but people started to use it, learn it, get those efficiency gains in their job. And you saw maybe a decade later the companies that really, really gained, the market cap on top of that, trillions of dollars of, market cap now today from a lot of the companies that started in the mid 90s. So our view is that you are seeing kind of the same perhaps investment cycle here where it's early days, right? We talk about AI showing up in our daily lives. Where is it right now, right? So again, just for you and I, our productivity tools. Each and every day we use um, Copilot. I think, if I'm preparing for a company meeting, I'll say, hey, summarize and write an investment thesis for a company for me, versus perhaps before having to read sell side notes, go to the company website and so on and so forth. So Microsoft Copilot for sure, Google Workspace. So I think, in the enterprise, it's definitely early days. Now, where are companies using it? Where are enterprises using it? Customer support. automation. You're going on a website, perhaps you're talking to a chatbot. It's not a person anymore. Cybersecurity is an easy example of one where you're using cybersecurity to sift through a lot of the data and anticipate perhaps where the hacks are going to be. So again, I think you're still early days. And then if we think about it from the creative standpoint, and then we'll dovetail this into a lot of our investments later on, but think about tools for creatives, right? Generating videos, generating pictures. You're going to reshape media. You're going to reshape entertainment. A lot of consumer tech is going to look completely different. You're so early days and voice assistants becoming even more ubiquitous with what we're doing. So again, I think it's early days. There's definitely going to be opportunities everywhere. I think anything we're investing in, whether it be logistics, finance, healthcare, we'll talk about that. I think just thinking about the roadmap, right? You've gone from training these models to now agentic AI, having these applications you interface with, and then you're going to have long-term plays where because we're driving the cost and adoption curve down so fast, humanoids and robotics. So again, I think we're at the ground floor of something that's going to be really big. We as an organization have been using this for a while now. We have a quantitative team that has been using, natural language processing, trying to get sentiment analysis from conference calls. We have a regime model that we've created that's, back tested over 70 years, taking all sorts of financial conditions. So we've been trying to leverage this as well at our firm, and we're constantly thinking of ways to utilize it as well going forward.
Yeah, that's great. And then I just let me just pull this up here. There is one chart that you'd sent over, the team had sent over. This is it here. Um, that kind of also speaks to this idea of, you know, maybe we'll wonder how we ever lived without them. Like, the idea of driving, right, is something that could be, you could have someone who's a 2-year-old right now may never need to learn how to drive or something in the future. Is that kind of a concept?
Yep, exactly. And so, part of our investment thesis and where we did really well was the idea of training these models, right? The NVIDIAs of the world, where you are having all sorts of large amounts of data, and you need to do these matrix calculations at the same time. So GPUs solve for that, right? And then, companies like Broadcom, there's a custom way to do it, and then all the networking equipment you need in the data center. But what we're finding with, with software out there, with newer techniques like this reinforcement learning that DeepSeek taught us, we can drive these costs lower, and you can start to move that compute from the training itself to the inference, meaning the applications can start to get better now, right? And so two applications for us that we really think are going to benefit from this are humanoids and robotics. I think that will solve, and maybe we're a decade out, but solve for a lot of maybe productivity issues we're having, where, not issues, I'd say, but if we are truly trying to bring manufacturing back to North America, it's going to look different. It's not going to be, people here working 6 hours a day for 6 days a week for $6 an hour, right? It's going to look different. Perhaps humanoids, robotics, doing a lot of that stuff in the background will benefit. And then here, as you mentioned, full self-driving. This is a big part of our investment thesis. You can imagine companies like Tesla are at the forefront of this. Waymo, which Google owns, and even Uber. Our view on Uber is they're going to end up looking like a Booking.com, where they'll be the aggregator, right? You'll go to Uber, and they've partnered with everybody outside of Tesla, where you're going to go in there and perhaps leverage that for other EVs. And so to your point on this slide, couple things here. I don't know if you do you have a Tesla by any chance?
I do actually. Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so I
Yeah,
don't know if you've played with full self-driving, but it's got to the point where it's unbelievable.
yeah, for
It,
sure.
it it's driving itself. I can sit back now. It does a better job than me. It anticipates where things are coming. It doesn't like go onto the road and I'm scared or anything like that. So the point is, if you see this chart on the left here, um, the more and more data that you can, I guess, process and understand, and Tesla does a good job of this of being vertically integrated, it's going to make the system better. It's going to make the real world experience better. So you could see here, they as a company have way more real world miles trained than anybody else, which is an advantage. But the chart on the right, I think, is really interesting because it shows you the market share in San Francisco of Waymo. People want to be in an autonomous vehicle. They're okay with it, right? And you want to maybe be by yourself, or you want to be in a vehicle without maybe other people that chat with you, and as this gets better, people are more and more comfortable with it. The share is only going to increase, right? So again, over time, to your original point, my daughter, who's 5, may not drive because she doesn't have to, because these systems are going to be so advanced and so safe. So again, I think the data shows you that people are also willing to do these kind of autonomous ride shares, which shows you there's going to be a viable revenue opportunity there as well.
Perfect. Yes, thank you for that. And so, I'm probably in a moment here going to pull back up the chart that I had I accidentally opened this with, which was actually, you know, partially my motivation for this, to have this conversation, because it's kind of died down a little bit now. But earlier this summer, there was a lot of this kind of AI sort of doomerism, right? That there's going to be huge amount of job loss and so on and so forth. So certainly there is a lot of fear on job loss. So I'll just pull this chart back up, and I'll just sort of say, like, my view is that I expect there to be maybe a pretty painful transition, and I don't mean to laugh or make light of that, but perhaps it's likely short-lived. But from your perspective as an investor, how do you see that playing out, and what signs do you look for in companies that are enabling the shift, rather than just displacing workers?
So I'll give you some interesting stats here. This is obviously early days, but how AI can obviously enhance what you're doing, right? So you as an employee just can simply become more productive. I think certain industries where you have the exposure to AI, the companies are seeing a 3x higher revenue per employee growth, which means if you were using an AI agent, just today I was making a PowerPoint presentation, and I right clicked on Copilot and said make this PowerPoint, and it just spit it out, right? So you become more valuable. You are using AI, and I think Jensen talks about this. It's not about AI replacing us. It can replace all of us in theory. It's about, if you're not willing to use it or leverage it, you will be left behind. So I think that's part of it. I don't think it's that it's going to steamroll all of us. It'll just make us more efficient, but you have to be willing to use it. So, there's an element of skill evolution, right? Skills in AI jobs are changing faster than any job before. I think there's a stat out there that it's 66% faster, where if you are prompting something or you are using AI to code or anything like that, it's a good thing. It's going to, perhaps maybe you need less people, but you're more productive. That is productivity for a company. But what this does in the long run, and I think just the history of humanity, it's going to create new career paths. Like, I know this chart looks a little daunting. If you're an interpreter, I can go online now, and it's not the true authentic purpose of that. If you want to learn another language, you still want to speak it. But in the case of, hey, I just need to know what's going on here, interpreters or easy one, historians, you can see here. So this was, obviously data published by Microsoft and where the overlaps could be. And it makes sense. It's a lot of these industries are just parsing through a lot of data and then, trying to distill it, quickly. But what I would say is, in any big tectonic shift over time, it's created new jobs, right? There's going to be new jobs associated with Gen AI that probably didn't exist, right? So again, I think history has its way of finding new opportunities for yourself. So I'm not as my view is not draconian in that way, right? I think perhaps you'll just see shifts in new industries and new opportunities will arise. So
Right.
we're not so concerned on that.
Right. And I also just think, even just from first economic principles, right? Like, I think um, a lot of people speak about the economy as if it's this amorphous sort of blob of a thing, right? But meanwhile, really, what the economy is all of us, right? All of us humans interacting with each other, exchanging goods and value and ideas and so on and so forth. And so an increase in productivity has to go somewhere, right? Like, ultimately, it has to go benefit the economy, which is sort of all of us, unless we're kind of envisioning a completely different world. And so when I kind of hear a lot of the job loss stuff, I can envision it, to your point, around some specific jobs, maybe it's a transition period, but productivity productivity growth is good for humans. It's good for all of us. It's great. And then, kind of speaking about that, there are industries that we definitely want to see productivity really improve, and that would really improve the human experience. And one of them is healthcare. So healthcare touches everyone. What are you seeing in companies that you follow that shows AI genuinely improving outcomes, and what hurdles do you still need to see before those benefits can scale in mostly in highly regulated industries like healthcare or finance and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think you picked the one where, AI, the application of AI is very obvious, right? In healthcare where, it can improve outcomes. It can perhaps see and sift through things that a doctor may miss, and that's okay because um, these are very powerful systems, and so again, this is an easy one where there's opportunities. There are companies out there where taking all your medical imaging and sifting through that and giving you a diagnosis that may be even more accurate than what would doctors may be seeing. And it could also just be providing a second opinion, which is great. Like at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's about just the outcome itself. So again, within precision and remote care, I think the easiest applications are in the med tech space. So for us, companies like Boston Scientific, right, where they have AI can enable personalized treatments, right, versus smart implants and wearables where you can constantly monitor and send the data back, and the tools will improve and hopefully over time help with chronic diseases and reduce hospital visits. So like that's an easy example of one where they can embed that into their products. Any type of I'd say so from a workflow perspective, if you think about more and more automation for surgeries, right? Robotic surgery platforms. We own, Intuitive Surgical, where you can make real-time decisions better. You can have procedural optimizations. You can maybe even do the surgery remotely, if that's somebody's specific skill set. They may not even be in that country. So things like that, where you definitely, see the benefits of AI. Now, where the challenges would be, obviously, is things like data. What can you train on? What can you and can't share? There'll be regulatory hurdles. So there is going to be barriers, as well, and navigating, the FDA or HHS with RFK. So there's always going to be that. But I think that is the one, and I think you nailed it. Where this is where the AI enhancements can really, really drive positive results.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And now maybe a bit of a flip on that. From what you're seeing, what's the most overrated AI theme right now? The one that gets a lot of attention but isn't delivering real value and may never deliver real value.
Yeah, so this is where I think investors need to be careful. I know a couple things, even Sam Altman was out the other day saying perhaps AI is in a bubble and you're seeing trillions of dollars of capex going into data centers and training these models. Where I'd be cautious is a couple things. From an investment perspective, there's always going to be these hype cycles, right? Where you're going to have many AIs come out and they don't have a solution to a defined problem, right? And what I mean by that is in the early or mid 90s, you had how many internet browsers, right?
Right.
And how many of them really survived, right? Just Google for one, maybe a little bit of Bing, and the rest are gone. You had a
Right.
lot of companies that laid the fiber optic cables and they didn't accrue any of the value, right? They went bust, and then the internet companies accrued the value. So there are going to be a lot of companies right now where I'm not sure the models are sustainable. And so again, roads maybe point back to Meta and Google being winners just because even as second followers, they have the balance sheets to survive. Another thing too, I'd say as well is the business model of the internet, in my view, is going to look different. And what I mean by that is if you are using more and more ChatGPT and Copilot, and as we mentioned, there's been massive adoption there, and it's one of the fastest kind of platforms in history. The business model is going to change because if you're searching there, you are inherently not going to the website and clicking anymore. And how a lot of companies make money is you own a website and you click and they have advertising there so they can monetize you landing on their website. Now, if you're not going to their website and clicking, they're not making money. So again, there's this great chart out there. I know I don't have it today, but what are the platforms that, companies are actually training on? It's like Reddit, it's YouTube, it's Wikipedia. But then as you get down the list, you're not going to be clicking on as many companies. So how those or websites and how those companies going to make money. So even these search engine, the chat GPTs and Copilots, there's going to have to be a subscription model, right? You're going to have to probably pay them, and then they can, based on what you are searching and what data is being pulled, pay the underlying website accordingly. And in that world, maybe a few survive again and the rest don't, right? So, I would just be careful. Like, yes, a lot of this stuff sounds great. Perhaps you get a bit of an overbuild in the near term, but really to have a sustainable business model, history has shown maybe a few companies truly do nail it from a financial perspective. So I just be careful of just buying anything and everything in AI.
Right, right, right. All right, let's go back to the hype cycle here. So generative AI has been adopted faster than any technology in history, faster than electricity, the internet, even the telephone. You submitted your team forwarded me a chart that was kind of
Yeah.
um, kind of you can infer, the demand pickup. So, when you kind of think of that fast adoption, this chart, and kind of these other measures of AI adoption, what does that say to you? Is this the biggest investment landscape of our lifetime, or do you see reasons to be more cautious despite the speed? Although you did touch on that in the last answer.
Yeah, I'd say a couple things. I apologize if, I sent this in a weird order, but do you have the cloud CapEx spending chart as well by any
I,
chance? Or did you just
yeah,
take
I
this one?
should. Yep. No, 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 no. I can pull that up. Let me just give me one moment.
Yeah, no
Yep.
worries. And I'll just keep talking. And I just wanted to frame a few things. I think to your question, now, if you just go back to the start of this year, we were worried, right? When DeepSeek hit, it really changed a lot of the assumptions potentially. Now, we'll never really know what the company actually had for training their models, but they had a mousetrap using that reinforcement learning and distilling techniques to train a model that was equivalent of what Meta was doing with Llama at the time for 1/10 of the cost, and then Baba came out and said we could do it for 1/10 of that, and so on and so forth. So were we in North America, for lack of a better word, having a lot of hubris and just spending a lot, and then perhaps we don't really need that capacity. Now we can argue that you put the capacity in, maybe less of it's for training and more of it's for inference, so the apps get better, kind of as I talked about in the beginning. So January 27th was scary. Like you saw in our not just our portfolios, a lot of portfolios, not just technology rollover, the companies tied to this, but also the companies that, part of the industrials build out. You're going to need more data centers. You're going to need more power to the data centers. You're going to need more liquid cooling. And then, oh, by the way, you need ways to power this. So perhaps the only way to power this is nuclear. And all of these went down together. So from a portfolio perspective, one of the things we do, is we run the correlations of our names, correlations of our beta and momentum, and you don't want to be too offside. I mean, we're not running an AI fund here, so if I own one or two of these, I don't need to own all of them. We all know what the names are, so I think we just need to be a little bit careful. So January 27th was a bit of an eye opener, but the flip side of that is clearly the companies in North America um, didn't really pay attention to that. And what I mean by that is they see an opportunity in a line of sight, that to keep investing. So again, as I was saying, perhaps who knows if DeepSeek what they really had in terms of training in NVIDIA GPUs or access to it. But the companies, and the reason I wanted to pull up this chart is if you look at what the companies have said post this quarter, and you add up all the hyperscale cloud capex, it's actually been revised higher, meaning these companies are willing to spend more even post this quarter. So clearly there's an arms race. There's a race with each other. They want to have the best kind of products and services. And if you see the chart on the right, this is the idea of capital intensity. They're willing to spend more as a percentage of their capex, meaning even as a percentage of revenue that's going up. So it's not just the absolute number, but it's the percent mix as within that. So they're willing to spend more on AI. So clearly that was a bit debunked, and these companies are pushing forward. So maybe just if you go back to your slide, if you don't mind,
Yep.
um, if we go back to the monthly tokens processed, what does this mean? This is a proxy for AI demand, meaning A token, just think of it as a unit of workload. Think of it as a chunk of text, right? When you type something, you're asking it a question, you're getting a bunch of text back. So that token is that text. So the number of tokens processed here, so the computation that's actually happening, meaning you're probably asking it more, and it is looking up more and more, kind of more and more things, I guess. It's not just training anymore. This is inference. This is meaning people are actually using it. So I think you could see here that Google Cloud number is about 980 trillion tokens monthly. So that's massive. It's growing. So again, there is adoption here. People are using this. And so Google, they took their CapEx up last quarter as well. They talk about having a massive backlog here. So this is durable, right? Now, again, questions on like how people can monetize long term, but there's no question on the usage here and the investment going into the infrastructure to support it. So it is kind of validating what these companies are saying.
Right. Yes. And yeah, I mean, that monthly tokens piece. I mean, if I just even anecdotally see my life, when ChatGPT first came out, I was on it, using it a lot, telling my family and friends to hop on it, and they're all laughing at me. And now they use it just as much as I do, right? Like from the oldest members to the youngest. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and it's all of them. Like I think, not trying to make this a page turner, but we had another slide 38, where you saw, Google Gemini, Grok, Perplexity, Claude, they're all maybe having their own little niches, right? Like Grok, hey, make me an image that does this. And, it's pretty quick and clever in doing that. And so, to your point, everybody's learning how to use this more and more.
Mhm.
And so that's why I just feel like it's such early days.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, Aritro, thank you so much for the thoughtful look at how AI is reshaping our world and what really matters for investors. It's rare to hear directly from one of the most disciplined and forward-thinking portfolio managers in the space, and I know our audience will take a lot from this. For those invested with us in Global Select, we're going to continue this conversation privately, where Aritro will share how the team's thinking on AI has evolved over the years, how it sits in the portfolio today, and what they see looking ahead. Thank you very much.